In this video, we're looking at the strength of Bitcoin compared to the NASDAQ. And why, you might ask, is this important? Well, the correlation has been extremely high between Bitcoin and the NASDAQ. And the NASDAQ is looking very, very weak. Major tech stocks are down heavily, including the likes of Tesla. But in terms of Bitcoin, it is showing much better strength than those tech stocks. So this is a good sign to break away from that, the possibility of that correlation continuing. So let's look at that in today's video. Make sure you've subscribed and like the content if you want to stay up to date with this analysis of Bitcoin and crypto. And just before we kick it off, thanks to our video sponsor today, which is Curate. Curate is the world's first in-app NFT marketplace, making buying, selling, and minting NFTs simple and gasless. Curate's recently announced a play-to-earn game called Recession. They also have simple in-app staking, up to 60% APY on their game token XQUR. There's also an earn feature where users can borrow and lend crypto assets, and NFT staking where users can earn passive income on their blue chip NFTs. They're also relaunching their physical goods marketplace. Think of eBay, but for crypto. I've left a link to today's video sponsor in the video description so you can find out if you can earn staking rewards on your NFTs. Now to the fear and greed and how this has updated our Bitcoin buying plan. Well, we've hit 13 on the fear and greed. This is extreme fear. Yesterday was extreme fear again. Last week, we had single digits at number 9. So for the last 3 days, we've hit 13. So that means buying Bitcoin, 12, 8, 14, 10, and 9. So we've been buying Bitcoin for about 13 days straight now. So what does that look like in the fear and greed plan? So I've entered the details for today. Basically, the purchase price today was $29,177. That gives us a total Bitcoin holdings of 0.9436 Bitcoin. But if you're only just joining cryptocurrency this year, well, let's take a look at this particular crash that we've had into May. So we've picked up Bitcoin the best times in this crash of 2022. So this is from the 9th. So we've had 13 purchases here. This total comes out at an average of 30,152. So purchased 13 times. That's a total Bitcoin amount of 0.4319. So nearly half a Bitcoin for $13,000. So if we did purchase another 2 times here, that'd be 15K with an average price of about $30,000. So you'd basically have been able to pick up half a Bitcoin at 30K using this particular plan. Do I think this is the low? I don't think so. I think we're still going to test that $25,000 low that was put in on the 12th of May and potentially go anywhere between that sort of 15 to 25K as one of the final lows for Bitcoin this year. Now, I'm not sure of the low, but in terms of the timing, I'm a little bit sure. I've been saying that for 2022. I definitely think we've got more lows to come, potentially a more significant low coming up, but I think it's probably going to happen in the next sort of 2 to 4 or 5 months for that low, and then we'll start to climb our way out sometime later in 2022. Now, from a new person's point of view, a new investor, someone new to crypto, they've probably never invested before and they just want to hear a lot of positivity about everything. It does seem quite negative to be talking that we're going to see further lows. But this is the period that the major portfolios are built, your $1 million portfolios or those big targets are built. I'm talking specifically about Bitcoin and Ethereum here, not necessarily altcoins. I will get very bullish on those at a later stage, but history has shown that it's not time yet. Not just my opinion, but that's what history is showing. Bitcoin is looking reasonably good, even though it could fall a lot further. Now, we have to understand that we're never going to buy the exact low on a market, and we're never going to sell the exact top. We just want to be able to take a chunk of profits out of the middle of the market. And if that middle looks somewhere around the current price of $30,000 and somewhere near those tops, which was 70, and you're sort of taking a chunk out at around 55, then you've still made yourself a very decent return on an investment. And so this thing can go lower to 14, 15, 16, but that's not the point. The main thing that we do as investors is to try and get a nice big chunk of profits out of the middle of the market and not worry ourselves to buy the exact low, run it all the way up and sell the exact top. That is a fool's game. And professional investors that have been around for decades upon decades upon decades do not try to do that because they know that that is not the game. There's an old saying that goes, the most money is lost around the lows and the exact highs, because people continue to try and time that exact point. It's not necessary to time the exact point, but you can get some of the timing reasonably well, and then look for that entry position. The market heads down, starts to head up, and you'll see that on a chart. And then you can layer your entries in at lower prices, not necessarily the low, and you can start to take your profits out, maybe some of your capital out as the market rises. You don't need to sell the exact top, because if you're buying at these lower levels like we're in now, which is a great time, then you don't need to worry that you missed out on the $60,000 high and you sold at the $40,000 high, because you're still making extremely good returns in that period. That's the idea about the swing trading in investing, and that's what the investor's job is to do, is just to take those bigger profits out. In terms of these bullish signals, so what are we seeing in the market in terms of the bullish signals here? Well, Bitcoin is holding the 50% level. This is pretty good. This is a short-term time frame, a 4-hour here. But the 12th of May, this is the thing that's getting me much more excited for crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum at this stage, compared to our traditional markets like the NASDAQ or like the S&P. So the S&P overnight just broke through its 12th of May low. It has closed above it. So this could be that low that the market is waiting for before we start to see some sideways churn and then a retest to some of these higher prices. We've hit our targets here on the S&P, so that's a good sign. That was the 150% of the double top. So you can see that these major areas here, that gives you a double top. So the price came up, fell, came back up, got rejected, and then we look for 150% of this range right here. So that's a good signal to say, look, we're probably going to see some sort of reversal, even though it is short term. But the weakness here and the strength, the bullish stuff that I'm seeing in Bitcoin, is that these traditional markets are looking much weaker. They're breaking down from some of their recent lows, being the 12th of May. The NASDAQ is the same. You can see it broke down from its 12th of May low that I've got right here, and it's closed above. So that's a good, strong sign for these in the short term. And I think we'll probably start to churn around again and just go and test some of these higher prices. Maybe the tops here first, and then some of these lows before the market broke down. But as you can see for Bitcoin, the 12th, and we throw onto a daily, it's still a good percentage away from that 12th, and it's not even near it. It's still holding up above its 50% level of the range from the bounce. So this has been a pretty good signal throughout this bear market. Bitcoin has been holding up relatively well in this sense, not taking out some of its major lows like the NASDAQ and the S&P has. While those markets have been taking out the lows, Bitcoin has been holding up. So it's doing that. It's now holding these levels as well. So held the 50% on the shorter term timeframes. And so that sets itself up for a stronger move to the upside to try to retest these higher prices. You can see this yellow line, and I posted about this on Twitter, so check out the link to Twitter and Instagram. Links are in the description, even if you just follow them so you're not getting scammed by other accounts, because every other account out there are scammers. I only have one Twitter and one Instagram, so just check those out. Posting about this, looking at this level, 30,700. You can see that we've been rejected once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. But the 50% is holding up. So this is the start, I think, of this next sort of 20 to 40 days. So call it 3 to 6 weeks of this market churn above the 12th of May. So I think that's what's going to happen now, probably for that 1 to 2 months, maybe a little longer, but around this sort of period. And we need to come back and sort of test the 31K, maybe get a little higher and test that 32.5, which were those highs before the market broke down to that final low on the 12th. And then at best case, we can come up and test the sort of mid 30s, which is this very, very significant level at 34,500. We broke down from that level. Now we need to come back and test it. This is a very significant level. So the bullishness is that we're holding up better than the traditional markets. And it might sound like something small, but it's pretty big considering that we've had such strong correlation for Bitcoin. It's a new market. It's holding up relatively well considering all things that are going on in the world. And if we want this thing to decouple from the traditional markets, Bitcoin decouple from the NASDAQ and tech, at least this is a good early sign. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow and it's going to start following gold, but at least it's got some strength compared to the traditional market. So there is some hope that it may in time decouple from the traditional markets. As for some of the fundamentals around Bitcoin, we're seeing 21% of the network hash rate in China. Even though Bitcoin mining is banned in China, there's still a fifth of all of the hash rate, all the mining is coming from China. So this map shows it pretty clearly. I mean, there's not much coming from Australia, so don't worry about us down here in the bottom corner. But China has a fair chunk of the mining here as well at 21%. We've also got the US, 37.8%, so the biggest. You've got Canada as well, 6.48%. And then, of course, Kazakhstan and Russia with the majority of the Bitcoin mining. So it's now at least spread across some of the major countries here: China, Kazakhstan, Russia, Canada, and the US, as opposed to where it was before, which was all in China. So this is a good fundamental sign that the hash rate is getting split up across the world. I know a lot of people see this as still being quite centralized, but if you take a step back, it was only in one or two places at first, and then it's starting to get broken up. Eventually, it'll probably get broken up from the US. Something will come in for the US. You'll get some sort of green policies that will try and rip Bitcoin to shreds, just like it's happened in China. And then from that point, maybe we'll see it start to spread to some other Eastern European countries as well, and then work its way across to other areas that have cheaper power or greener power, or power that's just going to waste, like we saw with El Salvador down here. For the short term on Bitcoin, the bulls are holding up 28,000 relatively well. We need to see them get above 30,700 pretty quickly, and then of course tackle the $31,500 so we can get that little bit higher. Like I've pointed out, I'm thinking that sort of 3 to 6 weeks we'll see as the market grinds up, and then maybe come back down over the following 3 to 6 weeks to come back and test the 28K, the 30K, the 25K, and just see how far we end up crashing. Now, I know a lot of people are waiting for around $22,000 Bitcoin because that is where the 200-week moving average currently sits. We've been climbing about $100 a week here, so 21,957. In the past, we have come back to that line. We had the COVID crash, and that broke pretty well through it, but it didn't last very long. It was only a couple of weeks underneath the 200-week moving average. But the fact is that a lot of people are seeing that and just saying it has to come to that point, and that we can't go under the previous all-time high, has me thinking that maybe they'll be wrong, because that's what the market tends to do. Like we saw in the bullish market, in the bull market there, we're looking for 100K Bitcoin. That never happened. We tried it twice. It fell very, very short. I would say 69,000 is a long way from 100,000. And then I think the same will happen to the downside, with a lot of people saying, no, 25K has to be the low, or 22K has to be the low. Maybe we'll see it break that 20K and go underneath the previous all-time high, which has never happened before. And that will shock a lot of people. And once that shock comes, then I think we'll be ready to at least turn around, grind sideways, or bounce out from that point, and the lows in, while the rest of the market is freaking out, saying this has never happened before, therefore we have to go lower. So I think a lot of that sort of shock factor will help the investor like yourselves that are watching this channel, that are aware of the fact that these things can happen, and that there is no set rules to what must or must not happen. Thanks for joining me on the channel. Check out the videos that I'm leaving right here. This will be for how to invest in crypto, and other great information that I've got on the channel if you want to learn more about crypto and, of course, investing. Like and subscribe. Do the good things. I'll see you guys at the next video. Until then, have more fun to get more done.